Hello, hello. Today is a very special day. I'm gonna get to speak with a dear friend, person who I believe has one of the best days around the world, Miguel Flores Vianna. And he's a master photographer with an incredible story. And we're gonna discuss two of his books. He's in London today, where he's living, but he travels all around the world capturing the most spectacular images. So I am going to make sure that Miguel is online. He is um, there. Let's take a look to send him an invitation. So here he is. Let's take a look. We're going to discuss two of his books. I'm sure there are many projects that are going to come very soon. One of the first books that we're going to discuss is going to be Haute Bohemians, which is his first book. And we are going to connect right now with Miguel Flores Vianna. So let's take a look. Wow, he's really technological. Let's take a look. Getting connection. Miguel.
Hey, Juan Carlos, how are
How,
you?
I'm great. How wonderful to see you and to know that you are very technological.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with the
You're
with the
doing a
times.
great job. You're doing a great job. I thank you very much for giving us this precious time. I know you just arrived from France to finishing a project, and now you're in London working again.
No, thank you for having me, and it is nice to talk to you. And hopefully, you can send me warm weather to England because right now I was waiting for our conversation to start, and I started hearing like strange noises in the house, and I realized it's the heat coming
The
on.
heat.
We
Oh,
actually have
yeah.
heat on. Yeah.
It's so funny. The heat is gone there, and the heat is on here too. We are almost 100 degrees in Miami, so it's quite sunny and hot. And but it's the privilege to live next to the beach.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I haven't been to Miami in a while, so I guess I should go soon after all this is past.
We love to have you, Miguel. I was just telling everybody that don't know you, the people that know you, how talented, how amazing instinct you have on your eye of only discover precious things, but never discover them with any pretentiousness in the way that you do it. You always catch these beautiful moments with your camera. How this fascination start with you to discover these spaces?
Um, I I when I moved to New York, I moved to New York wanting to be an editor, and I wanted to be an editor in interior design magazines because I was really attracted to homes. I grew up with parents who were quite, my father was very much into antiques. And I grew up in nice places, but it wasn't something that was very much put forward to me all the time. I was just aware of it. And then as I grew older, I decided I wanted to become an editor in an interior design magazine. And I thought the best place to do it would be New York City. Um, and as I started my first steps as an editor, of course, I was very much attracted to these grand spaces decorated professionally. But I realized that what really appealed to me were places that were decorated, so to speak, by their own owners, by the owners of the place of the homes. They were very personal, and they were places that sort of grew with time rather than were installed in one day. And I don't know. I guess that made me appreciate not only the high but also the low, and especially I love the combination of high and low. And I appreciate you saying that my eyes is that I'm not pretentious because I think that's a nice compliment. So thank you. Um, I like all sorts of houses, but above all, I like authenticity in houses, and I feel that those very personal spaces tend to be very authentic.
Yeah, it is interesting because, when I met you, which I don't even remember when, honestly, but you captured, I was captured by you as a person because you were sort of like a Renaissance man. I remember you didn't have a mobile, your email was not on, you were completely living in this amazing bubble, trying to preserve the beauty of the moments that you captured being an editor at the time. I think I don't remember, but I think it was through Alison Spear or to Marian Marquez.
Yes, yeah, it
Yeah.
was through Alison. Yeah,
And then it's funny because in your book, and these amazing books that you have done, this first book that we're gonna discuss, you give a compliment to one of the greatest editors of interiors, which is Marian McAvoy, which is a person that is just absolutely delicious just to see. She's just a porcelain beauty, and her houses are just amazing. And when you talk about people doing their houses, she was sort of one of the biggest influence in design because all the magazines trying to feature interior designers, and I think Marian sort of took a little bit of Diana Brilliant on photographing houses where people were living in, and they're making their own story. Don't you think
yeah.
so?
Marian, she was the editor of Elle Decor in New York when I first met her, and she was the first person who hired me as an interiors editor. And one of the things that I learned from Marian is that sort of the idea that houses have a spirit, have a life of their own. And it's those houses that have a great spirit, that have a great life of their own, are the houses that I'm attracted to. And in a way, she sort of taught me how to look at places. She has been a mentor, and now she's a friend. And and she's a Renaissance woman. Now she's in the process of sort of reinventing herself as this sort of great artisan, where she's making all sorts of things from her house in the Hudson River Valley. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being in her apartment in New York, and it was just a world of shells, and
Yeah.
everything was sort of done, and realized it was very confusing to me. Like, well, wow, this woman is a how-to-do woman in a way, but she have all the designers around the world, but she likes to get into her little table and glue things. I was kind of fascinated by that concept.
Yeah. I always tell the story that she was living when she decided to move from Manhattan to the Hudson River Valley. She was renting a house overlooking the Hudson River, and she bought a house, and the house that she bought needed renovation, so she stayed in her rental for about a year. And then one day it was time to move, and she moved, I think, on a Wednesday. And I went to visit her that first weekend that she was in that house. And Juan Carlos, the whole house was completely installed. In that year that she had to prepare her move, she actually made herself all the curtains for the house. She knew exactly where she was going to place everything. And so she just walked in that first day and started sort of realizing her plan. And 3, 4 days later, the whole house looked as like it looks today.
Yeah,
Um, she's very amazing that way. Yeah, and yeah, she's at the same time she's very funny and with a great sense of humor. So to be around her is not always, it's not only interesting, it's also very joyous, because there's always lots of people around her, and great food and great wine and all that. So she is a Renaissance woman in that sense. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And you were in El Decor for how many years?
So I worked with her at El Decor from 98 till 2000. And then in 2000, she left El Decor and went to House Beautiful. And she took me with her to House Beautiful. And she was there again for about 3 years. And after that is when she retired. And I continued working with Veranda, because her magazines had just bought Veranda. And and then after that, I went on my own as a photographer.
Yeah.
So I've been a photographer for about 12, 13 years, and that's the same amount of time that I spent being an editor, because before El Decor, I was with
Yeah,
Town
it
and
is important.
Country, and before that with Martha Stewart.
Yeah, it's important to know because I do remember when I lived in New York, and then I moved to Miami. You know that every time I took a magazine where your articles were completely the different article of the entire magazine. Even so, the magazine have a one line. Your article was about that person that you found in the middle of nowhere who have this amazing space and live with that is unusual collection. And you start to photograph them, and in the way that you photograph them are very personal. They don't have any. Here is Sofia Aldao, a mutual friend of us, who
Really?
has amazing houses on your book. You know,
Yeah.
say hello. Um,
Hi, Sophia.
yeah. So I see that your photographs have an angle, and they're very personal and not an angle that is very commercial, which is quite what it's just absolutely fantastic. You know, I always believe that you are an artist more than a photographer. You know, I think you should receive that compliment because I can't wait the day that you can start to publish your pictures and we can sell them.
Well, I I was lucky as an editor as well, because at the time that I started um, having more of a say on the stories that I wanted to do. So at the time of my sort of coming out as an editor, a very good friend of mine sort of came out as a photographer, and it was Fernando Bengoechea, who you also knew.
Well, I have an
And
exhibition in my gallery in Miami.
and Fernando and I sort of, in a way, sort of took it upon ourselves to do stories for El Decor, but for all the different magazines as well. And we sort of thought alike in many ways. So I found houses that I knew he would like, and that also I would like to sort of produce this story. And we traveled a lot together, and it was always quite wonderful working with him. And so for me, it was really great because I had someone who was sort of new in the game the same way that I was new in the game. So he actually gave me a lot of say in how I saw stories and that kind of thing. So it was quite a sort of partnership, and we had a great fun. So I think I learned a lot from him because he had an amazing eye, and hopefully I was able to bring stories that he found interesting and inspiring. So it was really nice, special time when we were working for Marian at El Decor, and also it was always so much fun.
Two
And
Argentinians
then,
took El Decor.
hmm?
Two Argentinians took El Decor. I remember the social pictures. Marian was just so proud with Fernando on one side, you on the other one, all incredibly, you incredibly elegant. Marian looks like a movie star from the 20s, and Fernando have this sort of all American blue jean, kind of wonderful look, very sensible, very wonderful guy.
Yeah, no, we had a, I never say, but you know how we actually met? We actually didn't meet at El Decor. We met before when I was an assistant and he was an assistant. So he was assistant to Roberto Gili, to the photographer Roberto Gili. And I was assistant to a man called Jeffrey Miller, who was a stylist, a very well-known stylist in the early 90s in New York. And we met on a job for which Roberto was photographing and Jeffrey was a stylist. And it was the house of Nureyev, the Rudolf Nureyev,
Oh
his
my God.
apartment on the Dakota. Nureyev had just died, and Christie's was having the sale of all his things, his estate, and and the New York Times was doing a story about the apartment. So that's how Fernando and I met, and I'll never forget that. Roberto, at the end of the shoot, it was a 2-day shoot, and I remember it was July. It was one of those sort of Julys when it's just so hot. He made us dress with all the fabrics from the Nureyev collection, and I still have Polaroids of all of us sort of dressed up with really rich fabrics and hats and all that. in that wonderful apartment, because it was the most amazing apartment that
Yeah.
Nureyev had. It was in the Dakota overlooking Central Park. So that's how Fernando and I met. And then we sort of continue seeing each other sporadically. But um, just before I started working with Marian and just before he went on as a photographer, we met on a flight coming back from Buenos Aires. And that's how we became really close. And he was a really wonderful guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the pleasure to do an exhibition for him of these beautiful images that he connected of bridges. I always
Mm-hmm.
remember in Miami at my store. I think you even came. I don't remember, but it was just such a nice person. But talking back about the spirit that you put into your pictures, it's inevitable to become your friend when you go to photograph their houses. So you have treasured this amazing network of very interesting people that let you be on your life, I guess, because you are a very, you know, simple, nice, social person. What is your impression when you get into a house? What is the first thing that you wanted to know in the space when you could capture the essence?
So I think the first thing that I sort of look for, or the sort of thing I start looking at is at the light. Um, I tend not to work with artificial lighting. I prefer to work only with natural light, and um, and so I sort of need to try to understand how the light works, because although I think that sometimes it's amazing to have, say, a ray of sun sort of streaming into a bedroom, I think sometimes it's much nicer to work against the sun. So you will often hear me go into a house where I've never been before and say, okay, so when is the sun where? And I try to work sometimes against the sun, if you know what I mean. So if your room right now is very sunny, probably I'll shoot the room that is behind it, that is not sunny. And from time to time, of course, I love seeing sort of streaming sun. But I think if you tend to work with that a lot, it gets a bit tiresome. It almost dates a picture. Um, so I would say that that's the first thing. And then for me, the other thing is to sort of get to know who lives there a little bit, because it's important for me to find out what is it that they like, what are their favorite things, and from then on you start building a story, if you know what I mean. And I actually love that. That's one of the things that I love the most, is sort of as I start working in a place, as the hours pass, you start to get a storyboard, and you start saying, okay, this is how I see it. And I find that kind of fascinating, not only when I do it, but I remember, so for example, when I was working with Fernando, with Roberto Gili, I would love sort of playing with the Polaroids, and eventually after a few hours, you have enough photographs, and you say, okay, here the story is beginning to appear. And I love that. I found that the photographers that I admire don't shoot everything. They shoot what they think tells us the story of a place. And I think that is a great quality. And that is a quality that I have seen in some of the people that I work with, like Fernando, Francois Allard, Roberto Gili, that taught me that you have to choose for the objects, for the corners or the rooms that tell the story, and you build it. It's not a question of shooting everything, because it doesn't serve a purpose. It confuses, I think, a story.
I think so too. One of the things that I see in your images, from my background as an interior designer, and then I think since you know me, I was already flirting with photography, doing my exhibitions, and
Mm-hmm.
now representing almost 34 people all around the world and the state of Horse Be Horse. You know, I see your pictures, and now I learned to read them a little bit better based on my experience. But I love, and I don't know if you notice it, but their rate of lights. They're
Mm-hmm.
just, the light is never even. There's always
Mm-hmm.
rate of lights in different areas that if people don't know that you photograph without artificial light, they will get very confused because they're actually just like a screen of the moment, and different kinds of layers, you know, which is sometimes done by these amazing, you know, light, machines and things and computers, but they look so natural and they feel it. You feel the space.
Yeah, and I like that because I mean I think light is sometimes is the when people ask me what is the most important thing in a room, and I always say it's light,
So,
because light, like with anything, it can either make you or kill you, if you know what I
yeah,
mean. And so yeah, it's to me it's the most important sort of quality that I look for once I get into a new
right.
in new sort of shooting situation. And of course, then the other thing that I always love and is houses that show the passage of time. So by that I mean not necessarily all houses, but houses that evolve with time. Because if you got an apartment, say in 2010, and now 2020, 10 years have gone by, and to be able to see that apartment, even if it's a minimal apartment, um, in in the great places, you can see that passage has time, and I absolutely love that.
You
People
know,
think that minimal apartments are supposed to be minimal and show nothing, and I quite the opposite, because they're minimal. What they show, um, in my opinion, shows a lot. So if those few things are incredible, are in a sort of in an empty-ish place, become even more extraordinary and more sort of interesting.
yeah,
So yeah,
you know,
I love that.
I've been showing, you know, the entire selection that we did from this amazing book that I have the privilege to own and enjoy all the time, which is this book, your first big, heavy, delicious book full of the most amazing images. I'm sure, you know, I didn't make it to the selection, but how many people you have in order to select this small quantity of magnificent houses and characters, because you know it's all about these people who live a life that is bohem, you know. How many people you went through in order to select this quantity? It was your job.
I mean, I discuss um, with myself, a lot of people, and some friends um, sort of gave me ideas. You know, for example, I'll be forever grateful to Carolina Irvin, for example, who suggested two or three people, and so in terms of how many, yeah, I mean, I probably went from 40 to those 20 that I chose. But once I made my decision to include someone in the book, that person stayed regardless. And so I've only shot, for the book, I only shot those houses that you see in the book. So I didn't shoot any extra houses, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's one chapter in the book. There's this man called Peter Hinwood. It's an
Oh,
apartment in London, and he also has a small house in Tangier. And initially, I was going to include it, but then I thought that his apartment in London is so strong that I needed to give him all the 20 pages that I initially was going to give to his apartment in London and his house in Tangier. So it wasn't really getting rid of the story. It was just making that story stronger by keeping it tighter, if you know what I mean.
yeah. You know, it's your experience as an editor. You know, editors are cruel in a way. They really work with a very small, you know, amount of pages, and to decide it, you know, what is going on there is just quite things. You know, one of my big mistakes in my first book is that I try to become my own editor in a way. You know, I trying to select what I believe I like, and for me, without the experience to be an editor, it was terribly judgmental. You know, to do it. You know, so I really learned from that lesson. You know, and but you have the experience to be an editor, you have the experience to be a photographer, and then you know these people, and that's the reason that this particular book is so concise. You know, I've been traveling around and I just see it in coffee tables of very special people, and it's just, you know, still printed. I think it's in the second or third edition, but it's just amazing how the book.
Seventh edition.
Seventh edition, imagine, you know. I only went through two and they dropped me. So you did a great job. They actually were so good that they returned me the rights. So I'm gonna publish the second book and I'm gonna let somebody else to do the job of editing. So this time I think it's gonna be better. But
Well,
anyway.
in my case, I have to say I actually love editing, and my partner is an art consultant, and he has actually quite a sharp eye as well. So he actually helped me, because sometimes you get attached to images because of what happened just before you took it, or because your relationship with the person who lives there. And so Patrick, my partner, was quite strict in that sense. Of, no, I think that one is better than the other. So he helped me make it more concise. I am in the process of doing a book on a castle in France, and that's what I was in France. The book is 265 images, and I mean pages, and it's going to be sort of full image, a full image per page, and on double spreads. So that means, you know, say a book of 265 pages, probably we're going to end up using 250 photographs, and we probably by now have more than 400 photographs. And I think this is the interesting moment, because they will have to start selecting things, and because it's a very sort of strong, the castle is very strong, has very strong interiors, and the photographs have come out that way, show that. And so now they'll have to decide what they do and what stays and what goes away. And I actually love that process. And that's what I realized, that in a way, I'm still an editor. You know, I love...
You're the perfect combo.
Huh?
You're the perfect combo. And then you have a great company called Ben Dom on your behalf. You're publishing your books. We have online a dear friend on common, Millie de Cabrol, which we all adore.
Oh yeah, there's Millie. Yeah, hi Millie. How are you?
The greatest decorators in New York and all around the world. We love her. But anyway, so going back to the story, then you moved to London for love, okay?
Yeah.
And now in London, and in London, you're not only happy with the camera, but you also start to shoot with your iPhone, which is kind of like more surprising. And then bingo, is another book. And I love it. And I get the chance to go to Palm Beach to go to your reading and signing with Wendy Goodman. She's and I was there, and I was seeing how exciting people were, you know, just enjoying this sort of a small version of book that enhance people to perhaps produce something with these amazing images that you capture every day. You know, how does it come to publish something with an iPhone?
Well, it's a two-part story. So when I moved to England, I moved because I'm going to do a sabbatical, and my sabbatical, and I moved to the countryside, and this is 2012, and I'm living by myself in a cottage in the countryside with no Wi-Fi, so no telephone except a landline.
Your perfect life.
I'm sorry?
Your perfect life.
Exactly. So just before I moved in, Patrick, my partner, gave me this really beautiful book that Annie Leibovitz produced called, it will come to me. Anyways, it's a book that Annie Leibovitz did around her travels, around places of people that she admired. So she went to the, you know, the sort of the place where Abraham Lincoln's cabin was once erected. She went to the Bronte sisters' house. She went to various places that were historical figures that she admired lived. And she put this beautiful book. And so Patrick gave me that book. And then so once I looked at it, I said, so the only thing I'm going to do while I'm living in the countryside on my own with no telephone, no nothing, is I'm going to take a Polaroid a day. And that's what I did. For a year, I took a Polaroid a day. And I have now, and I created this huge diary that is huge. It's really wide. Because I would take two Polaroids and then sort of glue them on my diary and write something. And so that was in 2012. In 2013, I go to New York and someone tells me about Instagram, and I'm like, what is that? I didn't know. I get it. To make a long story short, I ended up getting a telephone. I joined Instagram and I started taking pictures for Instagram. And I don't know, I think after 5 years, it seemed fitting that I should put some of those images together. I like the idea that a telephone, because that means that it's accessible. Anybody can do this. Anybody can take pictures. And it's something that, in a way, it's a little diary of my life for the last 5 years. Because rather than take pictures of the parties I went to or something like that, earlier on I said, it's never going to be that personal. It's going to be personal in the sense that it's going to reflect what I see. But it's not going to show where I eat or what I eat or who I'm with. And I wasn't interested in that. I just wanted to show people beautiful things that I saw. And so that's how this book came about. And right now that image, for example, is a place called Ibn Tulun. It's a mosque. In Cairo. It's the oldest mosque in Africa.
It's beautiful. I've been there. It's lovely.
It's an amazing place, yeah. And so it was that, sort of trying to, in a way, share what I have seen in the last 5 years. And it was really interesting because when I went to Bandung with the idea, they're an amazing team of people. It's a small company, but everybody gets very involved. And so immediately, the minute they give you the okay for a book idea, they're all behind you. So we all sort of teamed up, especially here in the London office, trying to see because some of the images with the phone were not good enough to reproduce on a piece of paper. So it was really interesting to as an exercise, if you know what I mean, for someone like me who's not that technical. I really love doing the book. And again, I love getting rid of images and trying to make a story out of these very sort of different photographs.
Yeah, you're a big chaser of stories. I remember I invited you once to Cartagena.
Yes.
And the trip was for a couple of days. And then, you were sweating and walking and being everywhere. And then you realize, darling, I'm done. I have to move to the next city. You photographed so many spaces and you were quick. You knew where to get at the same time. So you feel like your life is just destined to be a story chaser of images. That's why you want to die with your camera on it.
Well, it's funny because I always tell the story of the trip to Cartagena, because I don't know if you remember that you put together a whole group of editors and gallery people, and we all went for a long weekend, and you organized that. And so I flew from New York, and then we all met at the Miami airport, and then we all got on the plane and went to Cartagena. And I sat next to this lovely blonde lady that I have never met before, but who was enchantment itself. And it's your very good friend, Iran, Isa Khan. Yes. And I don't know if you remember that she said to us, what are you guys doing? Because you had put together a whole lot of things to do. And I remember the first night was a free night. So that night, she asked us, what are you guys going to do? And we said, not tonight, it's free. So she says, well, someone invited me to a party, come with me. And the three went to a party to City Hall in Cartagena, and the party was for the president of Colombia. Do you remember? So he was there, and so there we were sort of having sort of champagne with the president of Colombia. And I'll never forget, and this is the story that I always tell, is that at one moment someone came to him and says, Mr. President, there's people on the square and they want to see you. So the president, I think his last name was Gaviria, said to us, or Pastrana, I think it was, yes. Pastrana says, why don't we all go to the balcony? So we all went to the balcony, And of course, there was a lot of people sort of, he was a very popular president, so they were all like, Viva el Presidente, Viva el Presidente. And I thought, you know what, I'm probably never, ever going to be on a balcony with the president again. And I saw that he was waving at the people. I said, so you know what, I'm going to wave too.
You know, it's so funny because I do have a picture with Andres Pastrana, which is the president, a wonderful friend also, you know, you and I. So I'm going to send you that picture.
Oh, yeah, I would love to, because I do you remember then after that we went to that amazing dinner, and we went in open carriages. And at the time, the sort of the war with the terrorist war in Colombia was still going on, and I kept on thinking, oh my God, I was in the carriage with the first lady, and I thought, oh my God. But it's a wonderful, yeah, I still remember that. I always tell the story because it's sort of very funny. I was at my moment on the balcony waving at the people.
It's so funny because it was one of my first trips to my country after like 15 years of self-proclaimed exile, and my goal was to impress you. You know, I really wanted you to publish Houses of Cartagena and things and everything, and you know, Iran was there, and we just have such a lovely time.
It was really nice, yeah, and it's a beautiful city, and now Cartagena is very much in the circuit of where people go these days.
You know that I own a hotel in Cartagena. I decorated and I co-own a hotel with the clients of mine who became my partners, and it's called Hotel Casa del Coliseo. I highly recommend you to take a look of the page. It's a beautiful 16th century house that we restored completely and decorated, and it's a 13 rooms. It's called Hotel Casa del Coliseo. For everybody that wanted to go there, let me know. I give you you put the code Miguel, and then I give you a discount.
Well, next time I go, now it's definitely there's more sort of an incentive to go back to Cartagena.
It's funny because at the time it was not a place to go, you know.
No, that's what it was, and it was such a beautiful city.
I remember you arriving at the airport from New York, just with these beautiful pashminas, you know, guava color and your jacket and everything. I said, darling, you're gonna fry in Cartagena. It's really hot there, but you make it happen, and we have the best time. What is the next
wonderful
project?
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
is the next project after this amazing book that you're gonna do about the castle? What are you working? Because I'm sure you have many things. What's going on next?
Well, at the end of this year, shouldn't say at the end of the year. In September, a book is coming out that I shot for a friend of mine called Natalie Farman Pharma. Natalie is a fabric designer, and she's very much inspired by 3 countries: France, Russia, and Persia. So all her fabrics are very much sort of inspired by those 3 cultures, and she has the most incredible collection of fabrics from all of those countries. Fabrics and costumes and dresses and hats and jewelry. So we photograph everything. We photograph her house in London. We photograph her childhood place in California, and then the place of her parents in Connecticut, and then her collection. So all that is coming out in this book, which is going to be called Decor Barbar, and it's coming out now in September. And then next year, I'm working on this book on the chateau in France, which is also coming out in the fall of next year. And I'm sort of collaborating on a book that's going to come out on Rose Tarlov. So those are the things. And then, of course, I'm sort of mulling some ideas for some books that I want to do. And in that sort of idea of being an editor, I would love to not only do books of my own photography, but eventually I would love to help people put books together for themselves. And so this time of coronavirus, of staying at home, has been really good because I've been looking at lots of books. So I'm very interested in how people put collections together, you know, whether they're art collections or collections of memories, that kind of thing, and so I've been looking at all that, and
Yeah.
so
It
hopefully
would
there
be,
will be more books
yeah.
soon.
And then when you're gonna start to produce some pictures that we can sell in our online gallery, the art design project?
Well, maybe soon, because the thing is, when I became a photographer,
Sorry to interrupt you. Another wonderful mutual friend, Alejandra Cicconiani, which we both
there's
adore.
Alejandra. I love her.
I love her too. Keep going.
Besos, Alejandra, una divina. Um, I When I became a photographer, I initially worked with a Hasselblad, which is a medium-sized camera,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually, because of the developments in technology, I couldn't continue photographing with film. I moved onto um, digital, and just 2 days ago, coming back from France, I decided that I'm going to actually again get a medium format camera, and start doing things for myself. Because in Europe, there's a lot of opportunity, and I would also love to, because I love to travel. I mean, I love to travel just as much as I love being in beautiful rooms. And so it would be nice to be able to do some landscape as well. But I have to, in a way, redevelop my eye on that side, if you know what I mean, because it will have to be different.
You know, Miguel, it is so funny now having, when I close my gallery and now having this online gallery and having the privilege to represent, the Horse Be Horse Estate and all the artists that we represent. I do believe that people like to live with wonderful things, with things that evoke happiness. And many of your images are just almost like paintings. Like this
Thank
image
you.
is almost like a painting. So I think a review of your entire body of work before you start to do something different is a must, because there are some images that with a beautiful crop, they just create an entire sort of traveling eye. I think the only person that have done this in the past is Roberto Gigli,
Mm-hmm.
who have produced these books in a way, and I would say, but people are desperate for beautiful images to see. So I invite you to take a look, and to see it, because they're just amazing. Your images need to be in houses, printed in,
Thank you.
not only in a book. Are you going to give us a small peek of your apartment or your house?
No, it's a mess. No, but I'm gonna tell you something,
Tell me,
because I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna show you two things, because they're actually behind me here in the fireplace,
please do.
on the mantelpiece. One day, I think probably into the third week of confinement, I look on Instagram, and I see an account of a woman who's an antique dealer here in London, that she put a picture of framed 18th century seals, and I texted her and I said, that for sale? She said yes, and I said how much it is, and so I ended up buying it, and so we that must have been probably a Tuesday. So we decided that we were going to meet on the Saturday morning, the following Saturday morning, at a specific place, and she would give me she would hand me these frame seals. So I went, and on the Saturday, I go, and there she's in her car. She waves me from inside the car, and then she presses a button, and her trunk opens, and inside her trunk is the package that's holding my new sort of collection of seals. So I came back home and I was so excited, because you're in confinement, you're not doing, you're things like that become really important. I was really excited. So that was a Saturday morning. By Sunday, I already emailed her and I said, on Sunday morning, I watched a little video um, about Robert Keim. And in the video, Robert Keim says, showing things that he owns. And one of the things that he owns, that he shows, is this beautiful sort of prehistoric axe that he owns, you know, like the stone of the flint of the axe. And so I said, oh my God, I want one. So I emailed her and I said, do you have something? She says, yes, I have. So she sends me pictures and I said, I cannot make any decision. I have to see them. So again, we decided that the following Saturday, we're going to meet at the same place in this beautiful square in London. I arrive at 9 o'clock. She opens from the inside of her car, because we're not sort of talking much. She opens the trunk, and in the trunk there are about 6 or 7 of stones, sort of prehistoric stones that are for sale. So eventually I end up buying five, sorry. 4 are downstairs in the guest bathroom in my house. But let me show you. But this one is here. And this was one of the stones that I bought.
Oh.
And it comes from France. It says, Libby de Verre, a pound of butter, that's what they call it. Neolithic flint stone, France, 2500 BC. So from what she explains me, this is a stone from where other stones were carved out that were also used as either axes or for protection and all that. And here's the little. So I bought this, and so then I decided, okay, well, now I'm going to buy something else. So every Monday, it became a sort of tradition. Every Monday, I would email her and say, okay, do you have any Romanian pottery? And she would send me pictures, and on the Saturday, I would go meet him in the same spot, and we would exchange money for goods. And the last one, which was the day before the last weekend that we were all confined here in England, I bought this little silver Alto Peru beak from 15th century.
Precious.
And it must have had a lid, because, see, this is holding, and they must have a lid at one point. And this is a pomegranate, I'm told. Oh. And so it became a little sort of game. It wasn't a game, but it was actually the most amazing thing. Every week I would meet her on the Saturday after having decided what I was going to buy. And I'm telling you this story because I think, like you said, that we need beautiful things that have great spirit for our homes, because that's what makes a home a home. And they don't have to be expensive or anything. They can be anything. But if they evoke something, for me, it's just a wonderful thing. And I think I will always treasure those moments with Valerie, and sort of deciding what I was going to buy. And some of them were nothing, and some of them were a little bit more expensive. But now they have a history. Everything in my house, I want to have a history. That's how I sort of decorate my house, with things that tell me a story.
Miguel, I cannot tell you how wonderful it is to speak with you. And, unfortunately, Instagram gives us only 1 hour, which can give you an entire thing until happy hour. But sadly, it's going to end very soon. But I just wanted to let you know that you are an incredible source of inspiration for many of us. I'm glad you keep chasing beauty and publish it. And I hope all your projects come along, in the way that you want to. And you always have a friend here. And when you come to Miami, which is 2 hours to Cartagena, we can go. You bring your partner, and we just revise our times. And I thank you very much for your time. Tomorrow,
Thank you for giving me the space, and for your very nice words, and for understanding what I do. And hopefully one day we can have some of my photographs in your gallery.
I'm waiting for, and I invite everybody to have these 2 books. Because,
thank you.
That's very important, because I start this conversation, Miguel, a month and a half ago, completely bored in my head here in my home, and I start to sort of support my artists, and I start to interview them, of course, the ones that are alive, and then we just did a beautiful conversation with the curator of photography of the Victoria Albert Museum about horse that we're going to repeat, because sadly the communication wasn't done. But tomorrow we have a young artist from Venezuela, Thursday, we have an amazing guy from Palma de Mallorca who's opening an exhibition in Berlin, and it's all about frescoes. Luis Leo, which is divine. And on Friday, we have Casey Waterman, another young Miamian photographer. You know, so my goal also to include my friends and people who have inspiration to me is just the best thing that ever happened to know you and to be able to support your cause, because you are giving us food every day with your images.
Thank you. No, you're so very kind. Thank you, and it's hopefully we will all be able to see each other soon.
Absolutely.
And hopefully in warm climate. As I said, I think it's about 5 degrees outside right now. It's so cold.
I hear 100.
So maybe we can trade one day. I'll go to your apartment, you come to mine.
Anytime. You know, I love summer in London. People love it, you know.
Yeah,
People
it's a wonderful city. Yeah.
Like, where are you going for the summer? I said, I like to go to London because I ride my bicycles, you know, and I just love it. The flowers are there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. Yeah.
Yeah, Miguel, all my best for you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who watched us.
Oh my God, lots of wonderful people. It's been, you know, making wonderful comments. All my best.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you. Bye bye.